Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Here was civil rights lawyer Leo Terrell last night on Fox News.
Joe Biden is unfit to be president, and Joe Biden is a racist. Joe Biden has the mindset of a plantation owner. He thinks he knows how every black person thinks, how we walk, what we should eat. Joe Biden doesn't understand that black people are individuals. Condoleezza Rice and Al Sharpton are different individuals. We have a different mindset. And what the Democrats will do is they'll roll out Jim Kleinberg, and he say it's okay. Jim Kleinberg doesn't speak for me or Larry or black America. No one black person speaks for black America. And CNN and MSNBC, they wouldn't cover this today. Donald Trump is absolutely right. Joe Biden insulted every black American today, and he should not be president. He is the racist. What is so amazing to me is that they're going to put this guy out in front and said he's not. The only reason why he is getting a pass because he has a D in front of his name, not an R. Republicans are the people who believe in the colorblind society. Democrats are the ones who believe in identity and race politics.
It is very important that you seize this moment and recognize the political bombshell that this has been. At a time when Biden's lead is dropping, his lead over Trump is dropping, at a time when, God willing, coronavirus will start to dissipate, go down, the numbers will go down, at a time when black Americans have to make a big decision. A lot of analysis involves believing that the key to the November 3rd election is the black vote.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Dear members of the entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
We know that you're more famous than any of us.
Well, most of us.
I'm mad.
Distressed. Alarmed.
Infuriated.
It's your job to be creative. Creative.
Creative.
And yet, how many of these lame-ass videos have you made that look exactly like this? Like this.
Like this.
You entertain us.
It's literally your whole job.
Here's what we ask.
No. Here's what we demand.
That you reject anything that is anti-original, anti-interesting,
anti-convincing.
We demand that you try harder.
Harder.
Harder. If you do, we'll be with you.
But if not, we'll continue to not care.
About anything.
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 You have to say. Signed, the majority. The majority.
The majority.
Of the American people.
And we're done, because that's a reasonable amount of time.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Eric Holder once gave a speech in which he talked about pernicious racism. He said the kind of racism that was shown by Donald Sterling, the former owner of the Clippers. You might remember he was taped by his then girlfriend making all sorts of nasty comments about black people. He never said, by the way, the N-word, although she tried to get him to say it. She did everything but hold up cue cards to get him to say it, and he still didn't say it. Anyway, Eric Holder said, people like that, blatant racists, we deal with them. It's the pernicious stuff that we ought to be concerned about. And he gave 3 examples, one of which was the fact that black criminal defendants get longer sentences.
Of concepts like Prager University, we can take it back in a decade, but only if people support us. Go to prageruniversity.com and donate today. And I want to remind you, since I am such an advocate of ending the lockdown from the beginning, or virtually the beginning, based on the science. It's not based on scientists, many of whom are fools, dangerous, amoral fools, just like every other group. Scientists are not worse than chiropractors, plumbers, lawyers. No. But why would you think they're better? Why do you take their advice? You want scientific advice? Go to flattenthefear.com. Okay? There's a website to give you what scientists say that you don't hear because it's suppressed by the media. A very important website, flattenthefear.com. I am Dennis Prager. Thank you to James in Beaumont, California, who called in to say you should mention that PragerU has highest rating on Charity Navigator. I didn't even know it, so we just went here to Charity Navigator, your guide to intelligent giving. It's very well-known, Charity Navigator. You know what Prager University got it as a rating? About transparency, accountability, basically about the integrity of the organization. 4 stars. You can't get more than 4 stars. I didn't even know that, but I do want you to know that. And by the way, I think you should and would expect that of something that has my name on it. I take integrity very seriously. I don't run it day to day, but the people who do run it day to day are magnificent. I am a very lucky man. So I did want you to know that. Financial, accountability, transparency, 4 stars, Charity Navigator. PragerU.com. What you give this week is doubled. Now you know, in case you didn't know before, it goes to really good stuff. You know the Harvard student we had on yesterday? How it's changed her life. She was very impressive. Despite Harvard. Oh my God. So it all began with mail. This came from a guy named Alan. I won't give his last name because I don't know if he wants it. Maybe he'll lose all his relatives. Dennis Prager read your email. You're out of my life. A thought occurred to me, a rather harrowing thought regarding the long-term effects of masking on the psychological and emotional development of young children. The face is an instrument of overwhelming importance through which emotion, in all its aspects and subtleties, is communicated between people. The pervasive wearing of masks already impedes full human communication between adults, and it must be asked what the price will be in terms of the psychological development of small children, who will now be denied the full range of human interactions personally and socially that contribute to a properly developed and socialized individual. How do you like that, huh? That's a letter from a listener. I wish I could give his last name to honor him. I don't know, if somebody sends me, you know the answer to this question? Is it private communication? Unless someone says, please keep it private. Is it private communication to a public figure? To a public address? You don't think so? I can't imagine it is. I mean, if I write to a senator and the senator reads my letter out loud, has he violated my privacy? I don't know. I'm asking. So anyway, the image of largely anonymous, faceless individuals all around them seems to me to be frightening enough in its own right, but the long-term denial of normal interaction with other humans at early stages of development, I fear, may have serious consequences. It is almost as if children will be subjected to an enforced system of autism, impeding fully articulated emotional development with serious implications. And if the practice continues, they will know nothing else. I have heard no discussion of the serious prospect, and I think it deserves special attention. What do you think? Alan B., that is one intelligent letter. I have the chills. I read to you from the New England Journal of Medicine. Then the doctors got flack from the left for writing that it basically did nothing outdoors. And indoors, you have to be face to face with somebody between 10 minutes and a half hour to be risky. There is no scientific reason. It is evil to have closed the restaurants. Evil. It is a crime. I'm so angry on behalf of the people who own restaurants and nail salons and furniture stores. I could cry on their behalf. Barbershops. Well, I didn't say hair salons, yeah. Well, you don't go to a hair salon. It's not masculine enough for you. You go to a barbershop. He goes to a barbershop and he asks the guy periodically, would you, just a little nick, please, when you use the razor. Because that's the way it is for a martyr. Anyway, yes, that's correct. Also, to raise kids to be frightened. I wasn't raised to be frightened of anything. Anything. What a great way to be raised. I mean, clearly, it was, they didn't send me snorkeling in shark-infested waters, okay? We're talking within the normal range of life. I remember so often my mother would say, put on a jacket because it would be cold outside. I grew up in New York. My father would say, or don't go out, it's too cold or something, or whatever it might be. And my father would say, what are you going to do, keep him in a china closet? I didn't even understand what a china closet was. I thought it was a closet from China. I didn't know that China was, dishware and so on. But I remember the phrase. That's what we're doing. We're keeping people in a china closet. By the way, it's particularly apt now, that statement, the china closet. Yeah, I can't use that phrase, man. God forbid we should know where this thing originated, and that overwhelmingly likely man-made. By the way, all the hatred of Trump that has been developed over this time from the very beginning, it's all a way of simply deflecting from the horrors of the left.
You don't want to use that phrase, dude. I
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Now let me get to the bad news. Politico. COVID talks going nowhere as deadline nears. New York Times. Amid dire jobless numbers, small business relief program nears end. Washington Post. White House Democrats fail to reach agreement on virus relief bill. Next steps are uncertain. Financial Times. Donald Trump threatens executive action to break stimulus impact. You see what's going on? Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are demanding $3.5 trillion. The Republicans want to extend unemployment insurance, and they want to give small businesses money. It's about $1 trillion package. They're $2.5 trillion apart. Democrats are holding the unemployed hostage to the Green New Deal. It's that simple. They are holding the unemployed and small businesses hostages to broke states with massive deficits and unsustainable public employee pension program. And Mark Meadows and Steve Mnuchin don't give in. The president can use executive action, and he should. The great one, Mark Levin, tweeted out last night, and on this I believe Republicans are united. $1 trillion for relief of people who still can't find a job. The unemployment numbers are coming down. We'll get a number at 8:30 today, which I hope will continue to get us closer to 10% unemployment. And the third quarter is going to be magnificent as America reopens. But you can't be held up this way. And I cannot believe Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are doing it, but they are doing it.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
how do people live without Jesus and the comfort of God, because we are living in tough times? If people don't have that, I would think that there are people dying of fright in their apartments, in their houses right now, watching TV. It's one of the reasons you and I need to share the good news of Jesus Christ, because there's so many people, they don't even know it's possible to have the peace that you and I have.
When we, in the 60s, when the edicts began to coming from a group of individuals, the Supreme Court forgot one key element. There's a vast difference between the Supreme Court, a man-made court, and the supreme being. There's a vast difference. They forgot that, and they started passing the edicts. So we've been on a no God, no discipline, no love. We've been on that, and now it's turned to hatred. Would you have ever believed that the human race would slaughter each other? I mean, murder each other at this rate in our major cities in the United States of America. Eric, I'm looking at it thinking, come on, whatever happened to love, joy, and peace and patience and peace of mind? Come on. But it's a hard sell. So Eric, it has to be satanic versus godly. It has to be the old adage, the difference between good and evil.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Here was civil rights lawyer Leo Terrell last night on Fox News.
Joe Biden is unfit to be president, and Joe Biden is a racist. Joe Biden has the mindset of a plantation owner. He thinks he knows how every black person thinks.
Hey, everybody, Dennis Prager here.
Joe Biden doesn't understand.
Happy to be in your lives. And by way of introducing my guest, I want you to know that PragerU started about half a year ago. Is that correct? The Americanos, where we feature each week a Hispanic or Latino speaker who shares American values and who's articulate. And the first one to do it was Ana Paulina Luna, St. Petersburg, Florida, and she is a former Air Force officer. She was the first to do an Americanos. You could see it up at PragerU. You should see her, and you should see them all. These are great. This is our outreach to Latino Americans, and she's now running for Congress in the 13th District, which is St. Petersburg area, an area I know, Largo, I know that area very well. Ana Paulina Luna, welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dennis. An absolute
Sean,
pleasure
do we
to be here
have a
today.
connection here? We do now. Okay. All right, you're on now. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dennis. An absolute pleasure being here.
You did a great job in that video.
Yeah, I actually, I found in kind of my work doing outreach, and really when it comes down to stimulating people's hearts and minds and having them realize what their values are, especially in an age where everyone is basically bombarded by identity politics, what I found is that telling your story and really owning who you are is the best way to connect with people. And so that's something that I felt that was really lacking sometimes in, the political arena or even in conversation. And so it wasn't easy to do, but had it not been for really some of the great team over at Prager helping us write that and helping us put it together, I don't think that it would have come out as good as it could have been. So I just thank you for the opportunity, and I will say that it does bring a different perspective, and I think one that's needed in today's discussion.
Indeed it does. I want to ask you, I hate even talking about it because I'm so opposed to identity politics. We're all Americans. That was the whole dream of the American Foundation and E Pluribus Unum. Nevertheless, I also live in reality. So in reality, explain to me why more Hispanics don't vote Republican.
So this is something that I actually witnessed not only in my own family, but I'd have to say, being someone that actually grew up in the inner cities of Los Angeles, really something that I witnessed early on. And so what I found is that, for one, our public education systems don't even really do a good job explaining the differences between parties and really progressive versus conservative. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be that I think that it's just a general understanding that if you are a minority, whether you are Black or Hispanic, in my case being someone who's of Mexican descent, that the way that you vote is Democrat. But when you really look at what the policies that are being put forth by the Democrat Party are, that doesn't align with our values, which are Christian values. And so, on my father's side, I was raised Christian. On my mom's side, I was raised Catholic. And you can't tell me that, even something like being pro-choice is a Christian value. It's not. And so for me, it was really after I joined the military. Actually, I had enlisted. And it was after I joined the military that I was kind of taken out of that situation in Los Angeles, and I was exposed to different ideas. I was exposed to really what the rest of the United States had to offer. And I realized at that point in time that although I had grown up in Los Angeles, although I was from a very progressive and very liberal family, that my values didn't align with that. And so I actually am thankful for that experience, because had that not happened, I don't think I would be here where I am today. No one ever sat me down and even told me the difference between a Democrat and Republican. I had to learn it on my own.
So are your parents living?
Yes, they are.
And they vote Democrat?
Yeah, in fact, I've been working on my mom for the last 3 years. And that kind of transitions into when I got political. My mom, who was a very, very big Hillary Clinton supporter, very big Democrat voter her entire life. And then I'd actually turned down a seat in medical school to pursue the fight for saving this country. And she saw really what was happening to me. Obviously, my mom, who was a very young single mother, I mean, this woman walked home from an abortion clinic. Everything in my life has just really been influenced by her. But for her to know me as a person, and then to realize that when I did come out as a conservative, and when I was starting to circle onto the mainstream media networks, to have people call me a racist or a xenophobe, and the way that she saw me being treated as her daughter, not necessarily as a Republican or a conservative, as her daughter, she realized at that point in time that it was more than what.
But you realize what it took. My God. All right, I'm going to continue with Anna Paulina Luna in Florida, and you could see her on the Americanos at PragerU. Relief Factor is the most ongoing sponsor of this program. By the way, I always mention, not always, I often, talk radio is really valuable. Sponsors make it possible. Just a word to the wise is sufficient, as they used to say. But in the case of Relief Factor, you're not just doing a service to the country. You're doing a service primarily to you, which is the way it should be. The thing works. Try it out for 3 weeks. If it doesn't work in 3 weeks, you've just lost $19.95 in shipping. That's it. Because you'll know within 3 weeks if it works. To relieve pain. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
The Dennis Prager Show. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
I wrote an article about each of the three examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them was the push for voter ID around the country. Eric Holder said that was pernicious racism. Never mind that poll after poll after poll shows that majority of black voters also support photo ID. The other example of pernicious racism that Eric Holder gave is the fact that black boys are disproportionately kicked out of schools when you look at their percentage of that given school's population. And again, that's also true. I mentioned that some years ago, Jesse Jackson filed a lawsuit against Decatur, Illinois, the school board of Decatur, Illinois, because that school board had kicked out a bunch of black kids who were fighting after a football game. In comes Jesse Jackson. He files a lawsuit accusing the school board of racism. They defended themselves by noting that around the country, no matter the racial composition of the school board, no matter the race of the principal, no matter the race of the teacher involved, black boys were kicked out disproportionately compared to their percentage in the student body compared to other kids at the school. The judge dismissed the lawsuit. Bye-bye, Jesse Jackson. And let me tell you something. Decatur elementary school kids, after Jesse Jackson came in there and made that big stink, teachers said that black kids began saying, "Watch out, I'm going to call Jesse. Watch out, I'm going to call Jesse Jackson. You can't say that to me, I'm going to call Jesse." I'm not kidding. Look it up. This is the damage being done by this kind of race card hustling.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We have to talk about the jobs figures that are out, beating all market expectations. What is your interpretation of the almost 1.8 million jobs added in just July?
That we're recovering despite lawmakers who don't want to see us succeed. And I hate to say that because to me, Seb, politics should not, economics should not be political. In other words, we should be able to all look at our economy and say we want what's best for our economy. We want jobs for American workers. We want success for American workers. And that should be divorced entirely from who's going to win in November. But unfortunately, too many people, politically motivated, look at our economy through the lens of politics. And thus, they want to make sure that their candidate is better positioned. And in their view, they would like to see, I hate to say it, again, America's economy really struggle, because then that makes all those socialist policies that they put forward suddenly more attractive. I mean, not to me, but they think that to more Americans it will be attractive.
I want to ask Mary, by the way, in South Carolina to hold on. I want to get to your call. I'm back with Anna Paulina Luna, happens to be running for Congress in the St. Petersburg area of Florida, former Air Force officer. And she is the first person to make a Americanos video at PragerU, where we have each week. We have periodically. Okay. How many have we done thus far? Okay, we've done 4. She did the first.
3 so far.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was going to say we've done 3 so far, and we're in the process of shooting the 4th episode.
Oh, so you're involved in all of them?
Yes, sir, I am. I'm actually, in regards to that, I actually do reach out and do the involvement, and I can say that, for the past 2 years before I announced my run, I was actually very much so involved in the conservative activist outreach sector for Hispanic Americans, and so a lot of the people that have come to the show have come from that work.
Well, bless you. That's great. That's great. Look, at this point, PragerU is so big, I can't know all these details. I mean, it's just, no, I'm serious.
It's okay.
I'm thrilled to know that. May it keep increasing. Anyway, you could see her at the PragerU. So we were talking about the Hispanic vote and their values. See, let me tell you my dark theory. And if you totally disagree, I remind almost every guest, it's fine to totally disagree with me on the air. So here's my dark theory that people say is a common conservative line. Oh, Hispanics, they basically hold our values, family, God. They're basically, conservatives at heart. So, of course, then the question arises, if they are, how come they vote left? If they're really on the right, I mean, something, you got to explain it. So I have first of all, the family issue is problematic because second only to blacks is the percentage of Hispanics who are being raised without fathers. So I don't know if that family argument works as well in the next generation. Number two, they go to school and they get the same left-wing indoctrination that non-Hispanic kids get. Number three, they come from Latin America. Latin America is overwhelmingly left-wing in its orientation that government will take care of you. And they bring that to America. That's my dark theory in response to, oh, they're really conservatives. Am I right or am I wrong? Am I partially right?
Well, this is what I found, and I will say that a majority of Hispanic-born Americans here in the United States tend to rely more heavily on it. It is because we ultimately have that founding ideology of being a free country, right? But what I found is actually you are right in regards to the amount of households that are raised without fathers, and me being a prime example of one. Had it really not been for me choosing to join the military, I probably would have ended up a statistic, and given how I grew up in the welfare system, to a young single mother, having multiple family members, to include my own father, really struggle with a severe drug problem, I should have been a high school dropout, 16 and pregnant. And that's just the fact of the matter. Now, I will say that how I really woke up to all of this, and really why I decided to come out as a conservative and how I even got political is, in 2014, my husband, Andy, who's now fully recovered, but he was shot in Afghanistan. And in doing some of the outreach that I was doing with different veteran nonprofits, I came across one in particular, and that was called Veterans for Child Rescue. And what this organization did is it focused on basically rescuing kids in sting operations that had been trafficked across the U.S.-Mexico border. And when you look at really how as culturally speaking, how the Hispanic demographic is conservative, but what the media is playing in all of this is you realize that the media is a huge problem. And it's something even that Prager faces today. Prager puts out information that is not wrong, not offensive, yet Prager is censored because of the fact that it's waking people up. And I can tell you that when I started to talk on child trafficking, I got so much reaction, especially from members of the Hispanic community, calling me whitewashed. They would call me a coconut, meaning it's, you're brown on the outside but white on the inside because of my beliefs. But they had no idea because the media was not telling them what was happening at the border. Well, this is a fact. In 2020, the largest voting minority in the country, according to pewhispanic.org, are Hispanic Americans, specifically those of Mexican descent. When the mainstream media in 2016 changed its narrative to say that Democrats, quote unquote, that they care more about the Hispanic Americans, that they believe that everyone should have a right access to this country, that was a straight up lie. We know that the Democrats held the same policies prior to 2016, but really what changed is the fact that we were going to possibly have President Trump win in his election, and that's something that he was focusing on. So I tell all my fellow, Americans in general that if you are talking about these topics to someone of Hispanic American descent, you tell them what's happening, because the fact is that most Hispanic Americans don't even know what's happening on the border because they're watching the mainstream media. But
right,
when you tell them those facts,
forgive me, like Univision.
Yes, and Telemundo. And in fact, on the second episode of Americanos, we actually had one of my friends, and then also someone who's a very prominent Hispanic activist in California. His name's Anthony Cabazas. He was a former drug interdictions officer with the Coast Guard and an interpreter. And he was talking about how Univision had actually approached him to do a radio segment with him, but when they found out that he was conservative-leaning, that they just stopped talking to him. And so what they'll do, even what Jorge Ramos will do is they will prevent that message from breaking through.
Right.
Go ahead, Dennis, I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying that's right. That's what his Spanish television and radio is the same as CNN and MSNBC in English.
Correct. And then so people say, well, then maybe we should do, more Spanish-speaking media. But at the end of the day, the best way that I say to combat that is use your cell phones. And it sounds so crazy, but social media and the free market media has really changed the name of the game. Instead of having to go to a mainstream media network, we can go to our phones now. And that's actually why the show with Prager has been so important, is because it drops it right into the hands of these people.
Okay, I got to leave it at that. I bless you. I look forward to meeting you. All right, that's reason number 406 why you need to help PragerU, because of outreach like this terrific woman, Ana Paulina Luna and the Americanos. PragerU.com, 833 PragerU.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The biggest story of the week in terms of national security. It looked like a nuclear detonation in Beirut, in the port, in the docks there. I always say, first things first, with anything coming out of that region, especially the benighted region of Lebanon, most initial reports are fallacious. You got to wait and see. Fireworks this, fireworks that. How do you deal with breaking massive stories like that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the way a professional analyst does with that is you take the facts when you have, as you get them in, and you try to put context around them and say, does this kind of pass the common sense test? So hundreds of deaths, thousands and thousands of casualties, about $15 billion in damage. If you think of
and tens of thousands homeless.
That's right. If you think of the Murrah office building
in Oklahoma, which
was actually a bomb made out of ammonium nitrate, which is fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
But it's highly combustible. So if you put it, you can make a bomb out of it. 1,000 times more powerful than that. So, so totally consistent with that kind of explosion. And apparently, so this was a shipload of ammonium nitrate,
an old shipment.
The ship had broken down. It was owned by a Russian company. Refused to fix the ship. The port seized it. They stuck it in a warehouse
for years.
Yeah, went back and forth with the government and the courts. Nothing ever happened to it. So there were reports that fireworks were stored in the same warehouse. This is an incredibly unsafe, combustible conditions. If you actually watch the explosion, it's completely consistent like that because you see some secondary explosions and then you see the big, balloon thing.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Isn't it fascinating how we're numb to huge, explosive, sort of bombshell stories because of this year? I think it's the year. Honest to goodness, there are people who have no recognition, enormity of what Town Hall calls Joe Biden's racist comments about all blacks being the same. I've got people in my world who are like, well, there's not enough diversity among African Americans. What? Joe Biden's, I'm reading here Bronson Stocking, and this is a takeaway from everybody from ABC News to Hot Air to Drudge, and it's coming 88 days before the election. This is huge. This is crucial. It's very important.
Okay, all. Let me go to Greenville, South Carolina, and Mary. Hi, Mary. Hello, Mary.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Can you hear me?
I'm not well. Got to talk into your phone, please.
Oh, hello? Can you hear me now?
I can. She's gone. Okay, well, according to this, what she wanted to say was that inspired by the show, she handed out thank you cards to the police and they were thrilled. We have a very large campaign to thank the police. Is it still up there? Is still at PragerU? Or yeah, I'm not sure. We delivered tens of thousands of signed petition to thank the police. I mentioned the program of a Chabad rabbi giving his local police cupcakes. And now this Mary in South Carolina who had phone problems, but she did a beautiful thing. Do you know, overwhelmingly, this was fascinating to read in the New York Times. I don't tweet much, which is an error on my part, but I don't, for whatever reason. But I tweeted yesterday And I want to read it to you. It was a line in an article in the New York Times yesterday, and I tweeted it out. Let's see, here we go. I'm trying to get to my own thing here. Yeah. So this is what it was. I titled it A Deep Insight in Today's New York Times. And here is the quote from the New York Times article. It's about, in New York, the division between the left and blacks on police. The left wants police defunded. The blacks want more police. Get it? Because the left cares about blacks like you care about yo-yo making in Sri Lanka. Figuring out, this is from the line in the article. I just thought it was a gem. Figuring out how to handle violence is one of the most complicated parts of the effort to defund the police. It's impossible to overstate how what is the word for that? Duh? Is that the word? You know what that line is? That line is negligent. That is the perfect example of negligence.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
I wrote an article about each of the three examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them was the push for voter ID around the country. Eric Holder said that was pernicious racism. Never mind that poll after poll after poll shows that majority of black voters also support photo ID. The other example of pernicious racism that Eric Holder gave is the fact that black boys are disproportionately kicked out of schools when you look at their percentage of that given school's population. And again, that's also true. I mentioned that some years ago, Jesse Jackson filed a lawsuit against Decatur, Illinois, the school board of Decatur, Illinois, because that school board had kicked out a bunch of black kids who were fighting after a football game. In comes Jesse Jackson. He files a lawsuit accusing the school board of racism. They defended themselves by noting that around the country, no matter the racial composition of the school board, no matter the race of the principal, no matter the race of the teacher involved, black boys were kicked out disproportionately compared to their percentage in the student body, compared to other kids at the school. The judge dismissed the lawsuit. Bye-bye, Jesse Jackson. And let me tell you something. Decatur elementary school kids, after Jesse Jackson came in then and made that big stink, teachers said that black kids began saying, "Watch out, I'm going to call Jesse. Watch out, I'm going to call Jesse Jackson. You can't say that to me, I'm going to call Jesse." I'm not kidding. Look it up. This is the damage being done by this kind of race card hustling.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We have to talk about the jobs figures that are out, beating all market expectations. What is your interpretation of the almost 1.8 million jobs added in just July?
That we're recovering despite lawmakers who don't want to see us succeed. And I hate to say that because to me, Seb, politics should not, economics should not be political. In other words, we should be able to all look at our economy and say we want what's best for our economy. We want jobs for American workers. We want success for American workers. And that should be divorced entirely from who's going to win in November. But unfortunately, too many people, politically motivated, look at our economy through the lens of politics. And thus, they want to make sure that their candidate is better positioned. And in their view, they would like to see I hate to say it again, America's economy really struggled, because then that makes all those socialist policies that they put forward suddenly more attractive. I mean, not to me, but they think that to more Americans it will be attractive. But here's the reality. 1.8 million jobs being added to the economy, far more than people thought, and that's despite this on-again, off-again shutdown thing, right? That's a total schizophrenia type of move from local lawmakers who can't figure out whether they should open or close. And we still succeeded in adding nearly 2 million jobs. So that tells you that if government would just get out of the way, people could do what they know how to do, and that's run a business and participate in a market economy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
How much time do you spend thinking about root causes of the public policy choices that are made here, Heather?
I think the root causes come out of the university, the safetyism ethic, the feminization of university culture is now translated itself into this civilization-destroying mantra of stay safe. I cringe every time I hear that. That is not how a vital culture thinks about things. At some point, we need a politician to stand up and say, there is death. Death is a fact of life. There are going to be some deaths from coronavirus as there are from other things, but there is much more death and destruction being wrought right now by this heartbreaking crushing of private enterprise, of hopes, of dreams, of future generations' opportunity, and staying safe, avoiding one type of risk to the ignorance of all other costs is not what we have elected our government officials to do. They have abdicated their responsibility to weigh the costs and benefits of any given action. They have put themselves in the hands of an extremely narrow set of experts whose own expertise changes by the day. Americans have to wake up and start demanding change, because we are really, really playing not just with the lives of people now who are out of work and whose efforts to create businesses have now been snuffed out completely, but we are playing with our children's lives, because, again, prosperity is not coming back the longer these lockdowns continue.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Eric Metaxas Show.
Yeah, before we get off, because you and I love to talk, you have a new book out. The book is titled what?
Jesus Politics, because it occurred to me, you and I are inside a democratic republic, a constitutional republic. However, its foundation is in fact, like John Adams said, the Constitution that James Madison has hammered out for us, it's written for a religious and moral people, and it is wholly inadequate for any other. So the book is about how the kingdom of God, Jesus being the king, it was set up in the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago, 2,020 years ago, roughly. So you say, when Jesus came down and set that kingdom up, the kingdom, the manifesto is love God, love your neighbor, make sure you implement that, be kind, joyful, the fruit of the Spirit, all coming up together, rises. Watch this. As you come to him,
Okay, everybody, Dennis Prager. If the importance of the Ultimate Issues Hour, the third hour every Tuesday, is not clear to you, it will never be clear to you. It's Ultimate Issues ultimately decide everything else. Your outlook on life, conscious or not, determines your behavior. So we have a conflict of visions in the United States of America. Those who hold to the traditional American view of limited government so that you increase human liberty. The American Trinity, e pluribus unum, the melting pot, doesn't matter your race, your ethnicity, your nationality, you become an American. Versus those who emphasize the division, the pluribus, rather than the unum. Thomas Friedman of the New York Times actually said we should redesign that verse, or that sentence, not a verse. From many, many. From many we, not from many one. Yep. And of course, in God we trust. Nonsense to those who oppose the American vision. Anyway, you realize it's a clash of visions. So I'm just making the case for the Ultimate Issues Hour. So I'm going to bring to you a notion today that is very, very relevant. And here goes. So as many of you, I hope all of you know, the biggest work of my life in terms of time, energy, research, is my commentary on the first 5 books of the Bible, known as the Torah, for people of all faiths and no faith, called the Rational Bible. And 2 of the 5 volumes are out. I'm working on the 3rd volume. It is not being done in order. The order that I've done it is Volume 2, Volume 1, Volume 5, Volume 4, Volume 3. So that's completely out of order. I'm doing Volume 5, Deuteronomy. So I'm going to tell you a very interesting line in there that 99% of you never heard of, which is fine, because it's the idea I'm extrapolating that I'm sharing with you that is so relevant to today. There is a very strange law in Deuteronomy chapter 25, very end of the chapter. Moses is speaking and says, remember the evil that Amalek, a nation named Amalek, did to you. And they were a particularly cruel group, according to Moses. And remember to blot out their name. But the key is remember the evil that they did. By the way, there's no such law with any other group. There's no remember the evil the Egyptians did, right? They were just enslaved 400 years. Baby boys were thrown in the Nile. I mean, you would think that that's what he would say. On the contrary, there is actually a law in the Torah that you may not hate an Egyptian. Isn't that something? I wish that they talk about relevance to today. I wish that everybody on the left would understand that, and that Black America would be told, do not hate white America. And that was a long time ago, slavery, compared to when slavery was for the Israelites. Anyway, why bother taking the Bible seriously when you can take the New York Times seriously, right? Isn't that the view of the fools of our society? So, what do I extrapolate from that very obscure law? It is important to remember big evils, not the ones that are done to you on a micro level. That's a different story. Micro and macro are not the same. it's probably best in your personal life to move on. But big evils, national evils, need to be remembered. And I extrapolate from this the need to remember the evils of communism. They have been forgotten. And that is why you have so many truly dangerous, stupid people who advocate communism or Marxism. Do you know why? They don't know what was done. They didn't follow the law. Remember the evil that communism did. I wonder, and you might have a theory because you might have a college-age kid. With your college or even post, forget high school. It's inconceivable to me they would know. Do you think that your college-age child, or nephew, grandchild could identify Stalin? Just identify Stalin. I'll bet they could identify Hitler, although even that's receding. But Stalin. Now, Stalin killed between 20 and 40 million innocent people. Get it? We're not talking wartime deaths. We're talking innocents. In Ukraine alone, he killed 5 to 6 million people deliberately. Read The Red Famine, not written by a conservative. Ann Applebaum. By the way, reading Red Famine gave me the best is, I guess, the most clear vision of what it is like to starve people to death that I have ever read. That's what Stalin did. He purposely starved them because he wanted to collectivize the farms. And so if the peasant in any way refused to have his cattle taken away, by the way, is exactly what Mao did in China. Mao took their cooking utensils away and they starved. Mao starved about 60 million people to death. See, the problem is it doesn't mean anything to us. It's like saying, oh my God, that star is 100 million light years away. Doesn't mean a thing to people. It doesn't mean a thing to me. It's not people. I'm a people. I'm a member of people. The brain cannot configure. If you hear a family was murdered, you recoil in horror. You hear 60 million are murdered, and you continue eating your hamburger. It's the way the mind works. I guess if the mind could perceive the horror of 60 million people being starved to death, we would go out of our minds. I mean it. I think that God built in a protective mechanism against truly assimilating evil into our consciousness. Communism was so evil that there has been nothing quite like it in history. And yet there are people today, oh yeah, I prefer communism to capitalism. Because they didn't live by that biblical injunction to remember evil. You have to remember good too. Otherwise, you don't have that most important trait of all, gratitude. Gratitude is the mother of goodness, and gratitude is the mother of happiness. It is important to remember great good and great evil. 1-8-PRAGER 776, Ultimate Issues Hour, Dennis Prager Show.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Eric Holder once gave a speech in which he talked about pernicious racism. He said the kind of racism that was shown by Donald Sterling, the former owner of the Clippers. You might remember he was taped by his then girlfriend making all sorts of nasty comments about black people. He never said, by the way, the N-word, although she tried to get him to say it. She did everything but hold up cue cards to get him to say it, and he still didn't say it. Anyway, Eric Holder said, people like that, blatant racists, we deal with them. It's the pernicious stuff that we ought to be concerned about. And he gave 3 examples, one of which was the fact that black criminal defendants get longer sentences for a same crime committed by a white criminal defendant. And as I said and as I wrote, this is true. What Eric Holder didn't say is that the U.S. Sentencing Commission that concluded that blacks do get longer sentences said the reason they got them was for legitimate factors. Most notably, judges will look at your arrest record when determining what your sentence is. And the average black criminal has a longer record than the average white criminal. Therefore, the average black criminal gets a longer sentence than does the average white criminal. I'm sorry. I would urge you to Google Larry Elder, Eric Holder, sentencing discrepancy, U.S. Sentencing Commission, or something like that, and you'll be able to get the article. I wrote an article about each of the 3 examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The biggest story of the week in terms of national security. It looked like a nuclear detonation in Beirut, in the port, in the docks there. I always say, first things first, with anything coming out of that region, especially the benighted region of Lebanon, most initial reports are fallacious. You got to wait and see. Fireworks this, fireworks that. How do you deal with breaking massive stories like that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the way a professional analyst does with that is you take the facts when you have, as you get them in, and you try to put context around them and say, does this kind of pass the common sense test? So hundreds of deaths, thousands and thousands of casualties, about $15 billion in damage. If you think of
and tens of thousands homeless.
That's right. If you think of the Murrah office building
in Oklahoma,
which was actually a bomb made out of ammonium nitrate, which is fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
But it's highly combustible. So if you put it, you can make a bomb out of it. 1,000 times more powerful than that. So, so totally consistent with that kind of explosion. And apparently, so this was a shipload of ammonium nitrate,
an old shipment.
The ship had broken down. It was owned by a Russian company. Refused to fix the ship. The port seized it. They stuck it in a warehouse
for years.
Yeah, went back and forth with the government and the courts. Nothing ever happened to it. So there were reports that fireworks were stored in the same warehouse. This is an incredibly unsafe, combustible conditions. If you actually watch the explosion, it's completely consistent like that because you see some secondary explosions and then you see the big, balloon thing.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Isn't it fascinating?
This show is now available on live video streaming on Town Hall TV, as well as our website. If you want to watch the show, not just listen, go to townhall.com and click on the Town Hall TV button.
Hey, everybody. Dennis Prager, Ultimate Issues Hour. And I want to remind you, what do I want to remind you of? I know I want to remind you of something. That's right. MyPillow.com. It's on here. It's a great product. I use it every day, every night to be precise. And with the promo code Prager, you get a great deal. They are a major force for good, the MyPillow people. MyPillow.com, promo code Prager. So this is the Ultimate Issues Hour, and it is about memory. You have to remember the good done to you, to your people, to your nation. That's gratitude. Gratitude is the mother of happiness and the mother of goodness. But you have to remember great evil as well. And that is why the amnesia with regard to communism is so awful. That people should utter Marxism or communism in a positive way means that there is amnesia with regard to the most organized evil in human history in a concentrated period of time. Not only are we talking about 100 million innocents killed, not wartime, get it? This is not in war, where they killed another 10 million or 20 million, I don't know the number. In the wars that they started, like in Korea. But it was done to civilians. But not only that, not only the murder, what about the deprivation of dignity, of the right to speak, the right to think? Look at the automatons of North Korea. I went to Cambodia just to visit the killing fields. I remember I wrote regularly for the Los Angeles Times when they were liberal and not leftist. They turned left and they ceased publishing me. But I wrote a very long piece at the time. I thank God I did, because I was so angry at what was happening. The people of Cambodia. The communists of Cambodia killed almost 1 out of every 3 Cambodians in a very short period of time. Yep, people don't remember, and they don't want to remember. And I'm telling you, I have a feeling the Holocaust will be forgotten over time. I wonder how many high school kids can identify the Holocaust. Jeff, Rockville, Maryland. Dennis Prager, hi.
Hi, Dennis. I'm actually very surprised that I get a chance to talk with you. I'm afraid that my opinion of those, actually, at least of those who are leaders of the current communist movement, is worse than yours, because I think they actually know, but they don't care. I agree with you that there are many ignoramuses, of which Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would be a good, prominent example. But I think the kind of people who, for example, are the founders of Black Lives Matter, if you read what they write, I think they're perfectly aware of what happened. And to the true leftists, the cause is all that matters. People don't, therefore it doesn't matter how many people die. If you look at what Antifa did, I don't know if it was in Portland or Seattle, somebody set fire to, I believe it was the police union building, and they were barricading it so people could not escape. These are people who don't care about human life.
I know. They were going to burn people alive. And it doesn't even get reported in the mainstream media.
Right. But
so your thesis is they know what communism did and they don't care.
Yes. That's my opinion of them is worse. Not that they're ignorant, but they are in fact evil, and they would do the same thing again if given the chance. I think they would be perfectly happy to do that.
Oh, I agree that I think that there is a stratum of the left that would open up a gulag. I do believe that. Yep. That doesn't mean all of the left. I don't think all of the left. But it was never all. You don't need all. You just need a very small percentage of truly evil human beings. If they have the power, evil is done. You don't need all. All Germans didn't participate in the Holocaust. All Russians didn't participate in Gulag. All Cambodians didn't participate in the killing fields. That's right. My topic is amnesia over evil, and the brilliance of this obscure biblical commandment to remember what this evil nation Amalek, A-M-A-L-E-K, did. Don't forget big evil. Don't forget big good. Remember the example of the forgetting big good? And a Pharaoh arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Joseph had saved Egypt's life. And they forgot that. It's like people forget the good America does. They forget the good America has done, and they forget the evil communism has done. That's the world in which we live. Forget is pretty bad. Nick, Columbus, Ohio, a city that will be renamed shortly. Hello.
Hello, sir. Love the show.
Thank you.
Yes, I think the problem has to do more with the education system. I'm a 33-year-old veteran going to school currently on a GI Bill, and just took a course on the Cold War, and I'd say 90% of the class had no idea who Lenin and Stalin and Marxism and, the whole movement and what it did during the 50s of communism and the entire area over there. And so I think it moralized on educating these young ones just because it's been so long. Because a lot of them were interested and wanted to converse, but just had no idea.
Why did they even take the course? I'm shocked.
I think it's a private college. I feel like a lot of the classes that you take to supplement your degree are more fun educational things. So something you may not know about that you want to take a course on, and these kids sign up for it to educate themselves.
Well, that's great. Yes. Lenin. If you say Lenin, they think John Lennon. They're going to give courses on white fragility. Make-believe nonsense. But there won't be one course on communism. It is a sin not to teach what communism did.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
I wrote an article about each of the three examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them was the push for voter ID around the country. Eric Holder said that was pernicious racism. Never mind that poll after poll after poll shows that majority of black voters also support photo ID. The other example of pernicious racism that Eric Holder gave is the fact that black boys are disproportionately kicked out of schools when you look at their percentage of that given school's population. And again, that's also true. I mentioned that some years ago, Jesse Jackson filed a lawsuit against Decatur, Illinois, the school board of Decatur, Illinois, because that school board had kicked out a bunch of black kids who were fighting after a football game. In comes Jesse Jackson. He files a lawsuit accusing the school board of racism. They defended themselves by noting that around the country, no matter the racial composition of the school board, no matter the race of the principal, no matter the race of the teacher involved, black boys were kicked out disproportionately compared to their percentage in the student body compared to other kids at the school. The judge dismissed the lawsuit. Bye-bye, Jesse Jackson. And let me tell you something. Decatur elementary school kids, after Jesse Jackson came in there and made that big stink, teachers said that black kids began saying, "Watch out, I'm going to call Jesse. Watch out, I'm going to call Jesse Jackson. You can't say that to me, I'm going to call Jesse." I'm not kidding. Look it up. This is the damage being done by this kind of race card hustling.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We have to talk about the jobs figures that are out, beating all market expectations. What is your interpretation of the almost 1.8 million jobs added in just July?
That we're recovering despite lawmakers who don't want to see us succeed. And I hate to say that because to me, Seb, politics should not, economics should not be political. In other words, we should be able to all look at our economy and say we want what's best for our economy. We want jobs for American workers. We want success for American workers. And that should be divorced entirely from who's going to win in November. But unfortunately, too many people, politically motivated, look at our economy through the lens of politics. And thus, they want to make sure that their candidate is better positioned. And in their view, they would like to see, I hate to say it, again, America's economy really struggle, because then that makes all those socialist policies that they put forward suddenly more attractive. I mean, not to me, but they think that to more Americans it will be attractive. But here's the reality. 1.8 million jobs being added to the economy, far more than people thought, and that's despite this on-again, off-again shutdown thing, right? That's a total schizophrenia type of move from local lawmakers who can't figure out whether they should open or close. And we still succeeded in adding nearly 2 million jobs. So that tells you that if government would just get out of the way, people could do what they know how to do, and that's run a business and participate in a market economy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
How much time do you spend thinking about root causes of the public policy choices that are made here, Heather?
I think the root cause.
Join the movement that's disrupting the left's monopoly on education. Join Prager University. Go to prageruniversity.com and donate today. Okay, everybody, Dennis here. Dennis Prager, to be precise. The Ultimate Issues Hour every Tuesday. People need to remember great good, because gratitude is the mother of happiness and the mother of goodness. That's how important gratitude is. And they need to remember great evil. And I've talked about gratitude so often. It's time that I talk about the converse, remembering great evil, and we are living in the amnesia with regard to communism. It's just staggering. Not only the 100 million dead, all civilians, primarily Soviet Union, which is Russia and the countries it owned, and communist China, but also the third of Cambodians, the slaughter in Laos, the North Koreans, the Estonians, Latvians, and Lithuanians, but also the number of people just enslaved by it. It's like we don't even bother thinking about that, to the extent that people went and celebrated Fidel Castro. How could you be such a fool as to celebrate any communist? Any? Is there a good fascist? Then why would there be a good communist? The more power communists have, the more evil they do. But it doesn't matter. Because people are bored. Capitalism, liberalism, yes, liberalism. But the naive and foolish liberal doesn't understand what a mortal enemy the left is to liberalism. People don't want to remember. People don't want to know. All right, back to your calls here. George in Southfield, Michigan. Dennis Prager, hello.
Hi, Dennis. I met you in Washington at Kufi. You probably don't remember me, but
Well,
anyway.
bless you for going to Kufi.
Yes, sir. What I wanted to call about is kind of registered, but I didn't know how to talk to you about it. But I travel a lot. I've been inside Singapore, Africa, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, different countries. But I was in Budapest, and I landed in Budapest, and I was there for a day or two, and I didn't realize what I was seeing. I didn't really understand what I was seeing.
Wait, what year were you there? Wait, were you there under communism or post-communism?
Post-communism. Post-communism. A couple of years back. But I grew up in the South. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. But, Dennis, I'm telling you, there was something there that I felt that something was missing in the people. There was a soul or something. And then I realized that I'd been under communism for a number of years. And that type of experience I've never felt. And I don't think people in America have even felt the way those people feel or have experienced that. But many years later, there's still that aura of what happened in the past, and I couldn't explain it. And I don't know, maybe you can explain it.
I can actually. I can. Because I know Eastern Europe really well. That was my field of study. Been there many times. Been to Hungary more than any of the other East European countries, both under communism and post-communism. I was supposed to lecture there twice this year. I had two separate trips to Budapest planned, and obviously did not go. There is a sadness that pervades Hungary, in my opinion. Certainly Budapest. Can't speak for all of Hungary. It's hard. Well, he's right. It is a little hard to explain because the post-communist countries, they've all been traumatized. Romania was traumatized under Ceausescu. But I think the Poles are a happier group, for example, than the Hungarians. And I can't fully explain why. I should speak to Seb Gorka, who's Hungarian in his origin. Speak to him. Be curious to get his insight, because he's a happy Hungarian, but of course he's American. And Americans, until the very, very recent past, have been a happy people. Is one of the many, many guarantors or guarantees of leftism is a less happy population. Remember, it poisons everything it touches. Riduzone has been made by doctors, and it has 2 patents. It's the only FDA accepted product that has OEA, and that's the molecule that your own body produces to help you feel full faster. So you burn stored fat. It's a big deal. Now, Riduzone comes with a no questions asked 30-day guarantee of satisfaction. It is exclusively available at riduzone.com. Use the promo code Dennis to immediately save 30%. riduzone.com, promo code Dennis.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Yeah, before we get off, because you and I love to talk, you have a new book out. The book is titled what?
Jesus Politics, because it occurred to me, you and I are inside a democratic republic, a constitutional republic. However, its foundation is in fact, like John Adams said, the Constitution that James Madison has hammered out for us, it's written for a religious and moral people, and it is wholly inadequate for any other. So the book is about how the kingdom of God, Jesus being the king, it was set up in the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago, 2,020 years ago, roughly. So you say, When Jesus came down and set that kingdom up, the kingdom, the manifesto is love God, love your neighbor, make sure you implement that, be kind, joyful, the fruit of the Spirit, all coming up together, rises. Watch this. As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by men, but chosen by God and precious to him. You also, like living stones. I know Pink Floyd was not aware of this when they wrote Another Brick in the Wall, but that's exactly, and they might have got that wordage from here.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Do you know what this will do to Second Amendment proponents all over the country? Here was her announcement. This is the New York Attorney General yesterday.
Altogether, there are 18 causes of action, and these actions violated multiple laws, including the laws governing the NRA's charitable status, false reporting on annual filings with my office and the IRS, improper expense documentation, improper wage reporting, improper income tax withholding, failure to make required excise tax reporting and payments in excess of reasonable compensation to disqualified persons, and waste of NRA assets, amongst other offenses. For these years of fraud and misconduct, we are seeking an order to
All right. Ultimate Issues Hour. The need to remember good is obvious. That's the gratitude part of the human condition. I've spoken about gratitude many times. This Ultimate Issues Hour is about remembering evil, specifically communist evil, which is completely, well, it's too overstated, so almost completely forgotten. It's really vile. The reason it's vile because people will then repeat it. Communism is very tempting, as you can see today in America. All the young people and older people who have great enthusiasm for something that murders people in greater numbers than any other doctrine in history. And it subjugates and removes freedom and enslaves, but none of that means a damn thing. For whatever reason. So people just forget it. But there's another reason it bothers me when people forget evil. It is so unfair to the victims. The thing that people want most is, oh, the world has to just know what happened to me. I just think of the 100 million dead people, and not to mention all the 100 million, the billions of crushed lives. Not people murdered, just their lives were crushed by communism. And then you have these despicable Americans speaking well of it. Despicable is not a good word. You give me a better one. Terry in Pasadena, Texas. Hello.
Hi, Mark. It's nice to hear from you today.
Okay. That was, we'll move on here. And Seattle, Washington, and Linda. Hello.
Hello, Dennis. It's an honor to speak with you, especially the passion that you bring to the topic and all the awareness. History is repeating itself. My mother, in the early 50s, when she was a young girl, she attended in Northern Ontario, Canada, asked to attend a party meeting. And I remember vividly how she would explain to me how their approach was to their goal, what their means to the end. There were two things that I remember to this day, and whenever I think about what she said, and living in today's events, it's brings such a chill.
All right, well, quickly, what are the two things?
Yes, okay. One was to approach the society to introduce their ideas in a non-violent way. And then the other, which sounds reasonable, but okay, there's a but. And the second one was to affect language.
Yes. Boy, is that ever true. That's right. Affect language. Well, you affect language in the way in which it is done in all totalitarian regimes. You change the meaning of words. That's the way it works. Soviets would help the most awful regimes in the world. North Korea, China, communist dictatorships in Africa, Castro, and then speak Mir Miru, peace to the world. That was their great motto, peace to the world. It's what we have today. Things don't mean what they meant. Men give birth. We're supposed to believe that. If you don't believe that, you're a hater. If you do not say that. I saw last night a video in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., or Georgetown, Virginia, I guess, right? The Washington, D.C. area. Or is it Georgetown, Washington, D.C.? I don't know. I think it's in Washington. Doesn't matter. People dining out, eating at a restaurant, and some thugs came over with a bullhorn, screaming at them. No police taking them away. There's no concept of disturbing the peace. None. Not in places where Democrats are govern. And they said, raise your hand and make a fist if you agree with us. And almost all the people dining raised their hands and fist. One couple didn't. I would like to salute them. Oh, and they were yelled at. These cowards who raised their hands. This was the most depressing of all the scenes, including looting, including the breaking of buildings. The raising of the hands by these diners to these thugs. They gave in. This was of all the videos of the last 5 months, I found that the most depressing. Raise your hands and agree with Black Lives Matter or whatever it was. It was mostly white demonstrators, interestingly. They raised their hands, these white diners, with a fist. If you ever wonder why there wasn't courage, look, if there isn't courage when your life is not threatened, don't be surprised that there was little courage when people's lives were threatened. In Nazi and communist regimes, people judge people who didn't speak out then. Look at all these Americans who don't speak out today when there's no threat to their life. Nobody was going to shoot you if you didn't raise your hand with a fist. We'll continue. Ultimate Issues Hour, Dennis Prager Show.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
Dear members of the entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
Entertainment community. We know that you're more famous than any of us.
Well, most of us.
I'm mad.
Distressed.
Alarmed.
Infuriated.
It's your job to be creative.
Creative. Creative.
And yet, how many of these lame-ass videos have you made that look exactly like this?
Like this. Like this. You entertain us.
It's literally your whole job.
Here's what we ask.
No. Here's what we demand.
That you reject anything that is anti-original,
anti-interesting,
anti-convincing.
We demand that you try harder.
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 If you do, we'll be with you. But if not, we'll continue to not care.
About anything.
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 You have to say. Signed, the majority. The majority.
The majority.
Of the American people. And we're done, because that's a reasonable amount of time.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Eric Holder once gave a speech in which he talked about pernicious racism. He said the kind of racism that was shown by Donald Sterling, the former owner of the Clippers. You might remember he was taped by his then girlfriend making all sorts of nasty comments about black people. He never said, by the way, the N-word, although she tried to get him to say it. She did everything but hold up cue cards to get him to say it, and he still didn't say it. Anyway, Eric Holder said, people like that, blatant racists, we deal with them. It's the pernicious stuff that we ought to be concerned about. And he gave 3 examples, one of which was the fact that black criminal defendants get longer sentences for a same crime committed by a white criminal defendant. And as I said and as I wrote, this is true. What Eric Holder didn't say is that the U.S. Sentencing Commission that concluded that blacks do get longer sentences said the reason they got them was for legitimate factors. Most notably, judges will look at your arrest record when determining what your sentence is. And the average black criminal has a longer record than the average white criminal. Therefore, the average black criminal gets a longer sentence than does the average white criminal. I'm sorry. I would urge you to Google Larry Elder, Eric Holder, sentencing discrepancy, U.S. Sentencing Commission, or something like that, and you'll be able to get the article. I wrote an article about each of the 3 examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, everybody. The Ultimate Issues Hour. Talking about not remembering evil. I've talked about not remembering good so often, and now I'm talking about not remembering evil, specifically communist evil. I have so many calls here. Parents fled Romania. Parents fled Estonia. Parents fled Cuba. These people know. Sebastian Gorka, kind enough, my good friend and my colleague, who follows me on the Salem Radio Network each day. So, Sebastian, it came up, and we only have, as you well know, 2 minutes, so it's tough. But somebody raised the issue, which I agreed with him. He'd been to Hungary, and I know Eastern Europe real well, and I felt similarly that there is an unhappiness that seems to pervade the Hungarian people. And A, do you think that that's true? And if it is true, what's your theory?
Oh, I know it's true, and you can look at the suicide rate, Dennis. I think they're second only to Finland in the world. And part and parcel of it is what happened to that nation under 40 years of communism, which, of course, occurred after a fascist invasion. So when you break the spine of a nation slowly, over time, with a soft form of communism, not the East German or the Romanian version, you basically undermine the moral center of the people of that country. I spent 15 years there after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I finally decided with my American wife, we can't raise our children in this country, because the soul of the nation was destroyed by soft communism, the kind of quote-unquote socialism that we're seeing popularized here in America, Dennis.
Well, I didn't know if you would confirm it or not. And I mentioned that exact idea. They not only killed 100 million people, and I'm not talking war casualties, civilians. No. They break the soul. Communism breaks the soul of a nation.
And if I can, it's probably apocryphal, but the dictator Kadar, who ran Hungary.
I was there under Kadar. János Kadar. I was there. Yep.
János Kadar for decades. It's attributed to him. They said, why aren't you tougher like East Germany? Why aren't you tougher like Ceausescu in Romania? And he's responded to his Politburo. He said, it is far more efficacious to slowly bend the spine of a human being over time than try to snap it suddenly, because then they will resist. That's goulash communism, and that's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and all the other Democrats are trying to sell us here in America, Dennis.
Stay tuned for my friend. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're preparing your show, so I really appreciate it. So I got this all from a verse in Deuteronomy 25. Remember the evil that Amalek did. Remember the evil that communism did.